Good morning, children. Saira. Welcome to part 3 of History, Chapter 4 revision session of the chapter The Mughal Empire. Children, in the last session, we revised about the major campaigns and events of the Mughal Emperor. We also saw Mughal traditions of succession and Mughal relations with other rulers. So we revised about all these things, right? So today we will start the revision with Mansabdars and Jagirdars. But prior to that, keep your notepad and pen handy to jot down the important points, if any. Now let us revise about administration under Mughal Empire. So now in this we will revise about Mansabdars, Zamindars and Subedars. Now let us understand who were Mansabdars. Those who joined Mughal services, they were enrolled as Mansabdars. So basically the term Mansabdar refers to individual who holds Mansab. Mansab meaning position or rank. So let us revise this in detail now. Under the expansion of different regions of Mughal Empire, they recruited diverse bodies of people. The empire started with a smaller Turkish nobles, that is Turanis, and expanded to include Iranians, Indians, Muslims, Afghans, Rajputs, Marathas and other groups. People who joined Mughal services were enrolled as Mansabdars, as told earlier. So the term Mansabdar refers to an individual who holds a mansab, meaning a position or rank. So it was a grading system and it was used by Mughals to fix a rank, salary or military responsibilities. Right? So rank and salary were determined by a numerical value called Zapd. The higher the Zapd, the more prestigious was the noble's position and salary. The Mansabdars' military responsibilities required him to maintain a specified number of sawars or cavalrymen. So why were they required to maintain a specific number of sawar or cavalry? In order to increase the military strength of the ruler. Children, Mansabdars received their salaries as revenue assignments called Jagirs, which was somehow, same like Ikhtas, you may say. But unlike Muktis, most Mansabdars did not actually reside in or administer their Jagirs. The revenue collected for them by the servants. So basically in the Akbar's time, or during the Akbar's rule, these Jagirs were carefully assessed so that their revenues which are collected from the subjects were roughly equal to the salary of the Mansabdar. But in Aurangzeb's time, these Jagirs were not carefully assessed. There was a huge increase in the number of Mansabdars, which meant a long wait before they received a Jagir. So many Jagirdars tried to extract as much revenue as possible whenever they got a Jagir. Now children, before we move further, let us take a small Q&A session, that is question and answer session. So, who is a Mansabdar, children? Mansabdar refers to an individual who holds a mansab, that is a position or rank in Mughal administration. What is the meaning of Jagir? Mansabdars received their salaries as revenue assignments known as Jagirs. What are those who joined Mughal service enrolled as? So those who joined the Mughal services were enrolled as Mansabdars. What do you think is the relationship between the Mansabdar and the Jagir? Understand children, Mansabdars were the patrons who joined Mughal services. Now they received their salaries as revenue assignments. This was called Jagir. Mansabdar did not actually reside in or administer their Jagir. They only had rights to the revenue of their assignments. The revenue collected for them by their servants, while the Mansabdars themselves served in some other part of the country. Let us revise the next topic for today, that is the Zapd and the Zamindars. The main source of income of Mughal rulers was tax on the produce of the peasantry. In most places, peasants paid the taxes through the rural elites, that is, the headman or the local chieftains. In the Mughal Empire, Zamindar is the term used to describe all intermediaries, whether they were local headmen of villages or powerful chieftains. Akbar's revenue minister, Todarmal, carried out a careful survey of crop yields, prices, and areas cultivated for a 10-year period, that is from 1570 to 1580. Tax was fixed on each crop in cash. So basically, the function of Zamindar was to collect taxes from peasants and submit the same to the central government's revenue department. Each province was divided into revenue circles with its own revenue rates for individual crops. The revenue system was known as Zapd. Zapd system was prevalent in those areas where Mughal administration could survey the land and keep very careful accounts. This was not possible in the provinces such as Gujarat and Bengal. So children, basically the main source of income available to Mughal rulers was tax on the produce of the peasantry, right? In most places, peasants paid taxes to the rural elites, that is the headmen or the local chieftains. The Mughals used one term, Zamindars, to describe all intermediaries, whether they were local headsmen of the village or powerful chieftains. Akbar's revenue minister Todarmal carried out a careful survey of crop yields, prices, and areas cultivated for a 10-year period, 1570 to 1580. So, on the basis of the data collected, tax was fixed on each crop in cash, and each province was divided into revenue circles with its own schedule of revenue rates for individual crops. Now, this revenue system was known as Zapd. It was prevalent in those areas where Mughal administrators could survey the land and keep a very careful accounts. This was not possible in provinces such as Gujarat and Bengal. Children, let us take a small Q&A session on this topic, that is question and answer session. How Todarmal organized his revenue system? Todarmal was Akbar's revenue minister. He carried out a careful survey of crop yields, prices, and areas cultivated for 10 years period, that is from 1570 to 1580. On the basis of this survey, tax was fixed on each crop in cash. Each province was divided into revenue circles with its own schedule of revenue rates for individual crops. This revenue system came to be known as Zapd. However, this Zapd system was prevalent in only those areas where Mughal administrators could survey the land. Okay, so children, now before we move on to take a closer look at Akbar's policies, let us understand a little about Akbarnama and N.E. Akbari. Okay, Akbar ordered one of his close friends and courtiers, Abu Fazl, to write a history of his reign. Abu Fazl, wrote a 3-volume history of Akbar's reign, and he titled it as Akbarnama. The first volume dealt with Akbar's ancestors, and the second volume recorded the events during the Akbar's reign. The third volume is the Ain-e Akbari, and it deals with Akbar's administration, household, army, the revenues, and the geography of his empire. It also provides rich details about the traditions and culture of the people living in India. The most interesting aspect about Ain-e Akbari is its rich statistical details about things as diverse as crops, yields, prices, wages, and revenues. The broad features of administration were laid down by Akbar and was elaborately discussed by Abu Fazl in his book The Akbarnama. Abu Fazl explained that the entire system, or the entire empire was divided into provinces such as Subas, governed by Subadar, who carried out both political and military functions. Each province also had a financial officer or diwan. Now, for the maintenance of peace and order in this province, the Subadar was supported by other officers. such as the military paymaster, that is Bakshi, the minister, the charitable patronage, that is Sadra, the military commander, that is Faujdars, and the town police commander. Okay. Now Akbar's nobles commanded large armies and had access to large amounts of revenue. So while they were loyal to the empire, functioned efficiently, but by the end of the 17th century, many nobles had built independent networks of their own. Their loyalties to the empire were weakened by their own self-interest. When Akbar was at Fatehpur Sikri, he started discussions on religion with the Brahmanas or the priests who were Roman Catholics, Zoroastrians. Now these discussions took place in Ibadat Khana. He was interested in the religion, in the social customs of different people. Akbar's interaction with people of different faiths made him realize that religious scholars who emphasized ritual and dogmas were often bigots. Now children, we have discussed the meaning of dogma and bigot in the explanation session. Very important things that you should be knowing. Dogma is a statement or an interpretation declared as authoritative with the expectations that it should be followed without questioning. And bigot is an individual who is intolerant of other person's religious beliefs or culture. So, their teachings created division and disharmony amongst his subject. Okay, and what happened was this eventually led to the idea of sul-e-kul or universal peace. So this idea of tolerance just did not discriminate between people of different religions in his reign, but it focused on a system of ethics, that is honesty, peace and justice. Abul Fazl helped Akbar in framing a vision of governance around this idea of sul-e-kul. This principle of governance was followed by Jahangir and Shah Jahan also. So now let us start with the Q&A session. Okay, that is the question and answer session. Let us take the first question now. Write a note on Akbar's administrative policies. So when such question is asked, or check for the marks allotted to the question. If it is a big answer, you need to include all the points. Okay, like Abul Fazl in his book Akbarnama, especially in the 3rd volume named N.E. Akbari, gave a detailed description of Akbar's administration. You can start like this. Then you can say that in the book Abul Fazl explained that the empire was divided into provinces known as subas and governed by subedars. The subedar carried out both political and military functions. The subedars carried out both political and military functions. And now each province also had a financial officer or diwan. This was for the maintenance of peace and order in the province. Subedar was appointed and he supported He was supported by several officers like the military paymaster, that is Bakshi, minister in charge of religious and charitable patronage, that is Sadr, then military commanders like Faujdars, and town police commander like Kotwal. Akbar's nobles commanded huge armies and had access to large amounts of revenue. Akbar did not want to discriminate people of different religions, so he gave utmost importance to the idea of tolerance. He accepted the concept of universal peace or sul-e-kul. So this is how you have to write, okay, in detail. Okay, now let me take one more question. Give an account of Akbarnama and Ain-e-Akbari. Now children, again for your information, let me tell you this. When you are asked a particular question, okay, always check the marks allotted to that particular question. For example, if you are given a question which carries 3 marks, you are expected to write at least 3 points. If it is for 2 marks, you are expected to write 2 points, so on and so forth. Okay, now let me answer this for you. Abul Faizi, one of the Akbar's close friends and courtiers, wrote a 3-volume history of the reign of Akbar. It was titled as Akbarnama. The first volume speaks about Akbar's ancestors. The second volume recorded events of Akbar's reign. Ain-e-Akbari is the third volume and it deals with Akbar's administration, household, army, the revenues and the geography of the empire. This book also provides details about the traditions and culture of the Indian people. It is rich in statistical details about things and diverse as crops, yields, prices, wages and revenues. So I hope children you are clear with how to answer the questions. Okay, again repeating myself, check for the number of marks allotted for that particular question and then answer. Children, the administrative and military efficiency of the Mughal Empire led to great economic and commercial prosperity. International travelers describe it as the fabled land of wealth. But then these same visitors were also appalled at the state of poverty that existed side by side with a greatest opulence. So children, here opulence means great wealth or luxuriousness. Okay, the inequalities were glaring. Documents from the 12th year of Shah Jahan's reign inform us that the highest ranking Mansabdars were only 445 in number out of the total of 8,000. This small number, that is mere 5.6% of the total numbers of Mansabdar, received 61.5% of the total estimated revenue. They received it as salaries for themselves and their troopers. So just as I said, the international travelers described it as the fabled land of wealth. The Mughal emperors and their Mansabdars spent a great deal of their income on salaries and goods. So this expenditure benefited the artisans and peasantry who supplied them with good and produce. The huge scale of revenue collections from the primary producer, that is the peasant and the artisan, left very little for them to invest. So as I said, the Mughal emperors and the Mansabdars spent a great deal of income on goods and salaries. This benefited the artisans and the peasantry who supplied them with goods and produce. But then again, what happened was the revenue scale, of collection left very little for the investment in the hands of primary producers, that is the peasants and the artisans. This we have seen. So what happened was the poorest among them lived from hand to mouth, and they could hardly consider investing in additional resources like tools, supplies, or to increase the productivity. The wealthier peasantry and artisanal groups, the merchants and the bankers profited in this economic world. So what happened was the huge amount of wealth and resources, which was under the, or rather commanded by the Mughal elite, made them extremely powerful group of people, in the late 17th century. As the authority of Mughal emperor declined, his servants emerged as powerful centers of power in the regions. They constituted some dynasties and held command of provinces like Hyderabad and Awadh. Although they continued to recognize the Mughal emperor in Delhi as their master, by the 18th century the provinces of the empire has consolidated their independent political identities. So children, basically what happened that time was the poor peasants could not invest in additional resources, and the wealthier peasantry and artisanal groups, that is the merchants, bankers, etc., they profited in this economic world. The huge amount of wealth and resources which were under the Mughal elite, it made them very, very powerful group of people, and this happened in the late 17th century. So with the decline of the Mughal emperor, their servants emerged as a powerful centers of power in some of the regions, and they constituted new dynasties and held command of provinces like the Hyderabad and the Awadh. Now children, just like in previous videos, I will be conducting Q&A session, that is question and answer session. So first question, how were the debates with religious scholars important in the formation of Akbar's idea of governance? You can start the answer this way. During the 1570s, Akbar had a discussion on religion with the ulama, brahmanas, Jesuit priests who were Roman Catholics and Zoroastrians. Now these discussions took place during his stay at Fatehpur Sikri in the Ibadat Khana. Akbar was interested in the religion and social customs of different people, and his interaction with people of different faiths made him realize that their teachings created divisions and disharmony amongst the subjects. Thus, Akbar came up with an idea known as Sul-e-Kul, which focused on the system of ethics, honesty, justice and peace. Abul Fazl helped Akbar in framing a vision of governance around these ideas of sul-e-kul, and it was also followed by Jahangir and Shah Jahan. So you need to cover these points as well. Again, for your information, just to remind you, this exam is going to be MCQ based, right? The next exam that you will be having, the final exam you will be having, will be mostly MCQ based only, but according to the scenario, like how it goes and how we get the permission to start the school and all, henceforth in the coming years when you will have written exams, you should know how to write the answers. So for that, I am just telling you that when you get a question, always look for the marks allotted to it, and according to the marks allotted, write the answers. Okay, so if it is 2 marks question, at least 2 points should be there. 3 marks question, at least 3 points should be there, right? 3 proper valid points. Yes. So let us move on now to the next question. How important was the income from the land revenue to the stability of the Mughal Empire? So let us answer it this way. The income from the land revenue played an important role in establishing stability in the Mughal Empire. It strengthened the economic system of the empire. The money collected was invested in building forts and was for the welfare of the subjects. So, how its importance can be easily assessed from the fact that Todarmal, Akbar's revenue minister, took a 10-year period to carry out the proper calculation of the land revenue. So children, with this I end this part of the video. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye and keep learning.